Hey, first session we're going to be covering the basics of what Bitcoin and altcoins are. And I'll be making some simplifications of complex concepts since this is just to get started. The idea here is to get everyone familiar on the topic, not to make you experts overnight. So use what I'm giving as analogy rather than as scientific definition. Full disclosure, I run an investment fund and these sessions are not going to be about that, although I'm happy to take it up with you over private messages. A little bit before we begin, I was asked to speak on the role that mentors have played in my life. Long story short, this webinar wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for one of my mentors. It's always important to have somebody that you can go back to, somebody whose advice and feedback you can count on when you need it. And for me, my mentors have been supportive when I was growing, blunt when they needed to be, and most importantly, available when I needed them. This is one of the reasons I'm giving back through this series, so I hope you guys enjoy it. One more warning, this is just the first session, so please forgive me for any technical difficulties. We'll get that sorted out as we go along. To get started, what is a Bitcoin? I want you to think of Bitcoin as just money. Money in the same way that the US dollar is, that the euro is, that the rupee is. This is money that you can put in your wallet, that you can put on a phone or on a laptop. This is money that you can send across distances rather quickly. I could be sitting here in Delhi and I could send Bitcoins to my cousin in the US in a matter of 3 hours, something that the bank system just cannot do right now. I could go shopping for a Dell laptop. I could do all this online sitting here at home and pay using Bitcoin. Bitcoin is great if you want to send money somewhere, but it's not the solution to all your questions. If I'm going to the neighborhood McDonald's, I want to be paying in Indian rupees. I don't want to pay in dollars or euro or Bitcoin. So it's not some magical solution to everything, but it does have its uses and it's quite useful in that aspect. I could be using Bitcoin for doing cross-border remittances. I could use it if I want to set up a middleman or an escrow service. I could use it if I want a public proof of payment. And there are even cases when I could use it to get around censorship, the way WikiLeaks did when Visa and MasterCard blockaded them. So the immediate next question becomes, Bitcoins are there and Bitcoins are good, but how do I get Bitcoins? Two ways. The first is you could just buy some very expensive computer equipment that's going to carry out some advanced computation for you in a process called mining, and this generates Bitcoins, but this isn't accessible to the average user. The second option is that you go on to an exchange online where you can just pay somebody to sell you their Bitcoins. And in all these marketplaces, there are quite a few around the world. There is OKCoin, Coinbase, Kraken. There are a bunch of them around the world. In India, you've got ZepPay, UnoCoin, and some others. You go on the exchange, you look at the prices that it's trading at, and you just buy it. And the market decides the price. So today it could be $1,600, tomorrow it could be $1,700. These markets also provide wallets in which you can store your coins, but that's generally not advisable. Once you have your Bitcoins, the question of storage becomes somewhat important. So you could put it on an app on your phone and it becomes as safe as your phone itself is. If any of you have experience using wallets such as Paytm, I would say it's not that different. You are responsible for the security. You can put a password on it to make sure nobody else can spend it. You can back up the database in case you lose it, but at the end of the day, it's all in your hands and you need to take care of it. It's the same as any other payment instrument in that regard. When I said earlier that Bitcoins were money, it's because there are two main things you could be doing with money. The first is you could be spending it, paying for things. I can use Bitcoins to pay developers to host my website, or even to send it to a third party. And this becomes important because I'm doing all this outside the traditional banking system without the use of a bank. And while that may seem like a good thing, it also means you have a lot of responsibility on your head now. At this point, I want to bust one of the persistent myths about Bitcoin, that Bitcoin is used for buying drugs online. And not to say that it might not be, but it is not the primary use and it's not even a big use. For the average user, you cannot even get Bitcoins without being traced. If you go to an exchange where you're going to buy it, you need to provide them your KYC, know your customer, and AML, anti-money laundering information, which means that they know where your money is coming from, that there is a point when they can trace you. And as far as the governments are concerned, this is becoming law around the world. we're going to see this kind of documentation happening so that governments, which are aware that Bitcoin is surging, have a way of keeping track of what you're doing. They can't tell you what to do with your money, but they can see where you're spending it. And in that regard, it could be even more public than a credit card transaction, for example. The second use case for Bitcoins as money is that it's an investment. It could be an investment instrument. Markets love speculating, and Bitcoins are, because of that, commodities in the same way that gold is, which means you can put money into it and expect it to grow over time. With great profits in Bitcoin, there is also great volatility, and that's something that everyone should be very careful of. It's currently trading at, I think, $1,800 or about 1.1 lakh rupees per Bitcoin. But there have been days when it's crashed more than 20 to 30% in just one day. So, if you're looking for stable retirement money, Bitcoin is not that. But for the person who's trying to beat the capital markets, it is one of the most interesting instruments currently. At this point, I think it's important for me to give a disclaimer. I know a lot of people who've been doing trading with Bitcoins, and I have a lot of friends who've lost money in this. So while there are some knowledge-based trading opportunities such as arbitrage trading, the majority of what I see is guesswork-based speculative trading. And when you're speculating on any asset, on any market without understanding it, and this is true for anything even beyond just Bitcoin, if you're putting money into something without understanding it, that's gambling, that's not investing. And whilst you might have heard of people who made a lot of money, that's not true for the average person, for most of the people. So what I would say is that Bitcoin, just like any other instrument you may not understand, is a wonderful way of becoming a millionaire if you're starting out as a billionaire. So don't jump into this. Like I said, I'm happy to work with you if you want to invest in it, but that's a topic for another day. And in our third session, we will be looking at markets, we will be looking at investments. So while this might seem promising, it's not something for you to jump into just because you read a newspaper report which says there have been 400% returns across the last year. Moving beyond Bitcoins, there are quite a few options, alternatives, so to speak. These alternative coins or altcoins, you might have heard of some of them. There's Ethereum, Dogecoin, Monero, Litecoin. Fundamentally, as currencies, as commodities, they're quite similar to Bitcoin because you can use them the same way, you can spend them the same way. But many of these have specific alignments, so to speak. Ethereum builds itself as a computation platform, as a distributed computation and contract system. Dogecoin has been the number one public good and charity cryptocurrency. Monero is all about anonymity, much more than even Bitcoin is. You even have asset management services these days which also double as cryptocurrencies. One good example is Economy. You can check out this website called CoinMarketCap, which lists the market capitalization of all these currencies. You'll get a feel for what the market is like, what the bigger players are. In these last few minutes, I've spoken about quite a few things. So let's do a very, very quick recap. Bitcoin is money. Bitcoin is something which you can store in your wallet. It's something which you can send people. It's a payment system. Bitcoin can be on a phone, on a laptop, on an online wallet. It's also a commodity in that you can put money in it and you might expect it to grow. You have other commodities, other cryptocurrencies called Ethereum, Monero, Dogecoin. There are quite a few of these. Beyond all of this, I think what is interesting in this area, in this newer scientific realm, is the underlying technology to Bitcoin, something which you might have heard a lot about, something which I believe is the most interesting and potentially the most overhyped thing, which is something called blockchain technology. It's something which is supposed to be enabling hyperledgers, smart contracts, proofs of existence, everything which people have been in a hurry to jump on the bandwagon of. And while it's being billed as the future of finance, I'm not so sure about that. And we'll look into this next time. And until that session, I look forward to answering any questions you might have in the live Q&A which is coming up after this. So see you there.